What's up everyone? I'm Dave Torgy. Welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be talking about the Sony announcement that happened a few days ago where they announced the PlayStation 5 specs. Now, they didn't announce all of the PlayStation 5 specifications, but they announced quite a bit, more than you might think. So I read the articles, and I also watched a few YouTube videos. I watched the Digital Foundry video with them talking about the hardware and the ray tracing and other things. And I have my own opinions about everything. So I'm going to first talk about the thing that I'm most excited about. And it's nothing about graphics or anything like that. It's 100% about just my quality of life. And that's that the PlayStation 5 will actually play PlayStation 4 games. Not just digital games, and you won't have to buy them again, but they'll also have, your hard copies able to be used in the PlayStation 5. So if you have a huge PlayStation 4 library, do not worry. This is going to be great for when the PlayStation 5 comes out. You're not going to be looking for just like anything to play, because you're going to have a whole backlog of games to play. And if I had to assume one thing, it's that they'll probably be the enhanced versions that, went with the PlayStation 4 Pro. So you're going to look at better frame rates, 4K gameplay, things like that. They could also enhance the games, but who knows, maybe I'm asking for too much there. I'm just excited that my crazy library of games, which is grown to be over 200 on my digital library and probably around 70 in my physical library, that's not going to waste. That I'm not going to have my PlayStation 4 Pro hooked up for the next 10 years if I want to play God of War again. This is awesome news. I was not expecting it from Sony, especially considering how they handled the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation 4. Because the PlayStation 4 is backwards compatible to a point, only because they sell you PlayStation 2 games on the digital store, but that's really it. You can't play PlayStation 3 games in it, you can't play PlayStation 1 games in it, you can't play PlayStation 2 games in it. It's just digital, and that is all you get, and you have to buy them again. The reason this is the way it is, with everything being backwards compatible, is that the architecture of the systems is very, very similar. Not as far as the hardware goes, meaning the hardware is going to be whole new hardware, it's a whole new chipset, it has nothing to do with the Jaguar processors or anything like that. We're talking just the way the architecture of the system is built, kind of like Windows. Like when you build a PC, you have your x86 systems and your x32 systems. So when you have those programs that worked for Windows 7, they'll still kind of work with Windows 10. Same rules apply. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comment section, but I'm pretty sure that's the reason that everything is going to be able to be played in PlayStation 5, is that the architecture between that and the PlayStation 4 is just so close together that it should be pretty much seamless. Now, I'm hoping that on day one, when you boot up the console, your library of PlayStation 4 digital games is just on display, and you can just select what you want to download and it'll just go right away. I don't know if that's going to be the actual case, but that's what I'm hoping for. The other news that they announced was that this system, and I'm kind of taking this with a grain of salt here, is going to be capable of 8K graphics and ray tracing. I don't think 8K graphics is, you have to think about it this way. A lot of computers now, and we're talking very high-end computers, can't play games at 8K. We're talking computers that are upwards of $2,000 pre-built will not be able to play games in 8K, especially not above 30 frames per second. So I don't know why they announced this, because this seems very, very unrealistic, even if the console is coming out a year and a half from now or even longer. The other thing is, I don't think 8K is necessary. I have a 4K TV, and if I'm standing a foot or two away from it, it's really hard to tell I can't pick apart pixels at that range. This is not like back in 2007 where you had a 720p TV versus a 1080p. You can see those comparatively. The pixels on the 720p TV are a lot bigger, they're a lot chunkier. When you're looking at a 4K TV, it's really hard to pick those suckers out. Even 1080p, if you're looking at a small monitor, it's 1080p still looks really good if you're playing on a monitor that's 24 inches. So I don't know why we would need 8K gaming unless you're playing on an 80-inch TV and you're sitting about 2 to 3 feet away. But that's just my opinion. The other thing that I'm taking with a grain of salt is that it's capable of ray tracing. And I'm going to get pretty technical here right now. Please bear with me. So for those of you that don't know what ray tracing is, it allows for realistic implementation of things like reflections and bouncing light sources in video games. So if you want to like a real in-depth look at it, check out the Digital Foundry channel. They'll actually break apart like what it's like looking at a puddle and being able to see the reflection and what can actually be reflected in it, the way the light sources work, especially when it comes to things like global illumination. Very few games utilize this right now. Off the top of my head, I can only think of like Battlefield 5, Metro Exodus. I think Shadow of the Tomb Raider just got it patched in so that it's working well. Now, this doesn't mean they have to use ray tracing in every game. I'm sure they probably won't. And they will probably be able to get away with like low quality ray tracing or medium quality. Like if you look at Shadow of the Tomb Raider settings, when it comes to ray tracing, you can kind of dumb it down so it's not as intensive on your graphics card. The reason why I say take this with a grain of salt is right now the only cards capable of ray tracing are the RTX series cards from NVIDIA and some of the older cards. So I believe the GTX 10 series cards can also do it, but there is an asterisk here. The GTX cards use software when it comes to ray tracing, which is very intensive on the graphics processor. So normally games that you're playing on a GTX 1080 Ti, which is a very high-end graphics card, you can average upwards of 100 frames per second in a game. But if you turn on ray tracing and you're using it at like ultra settings, which is the highest settings, you'll take a huge FPS dip. We're talking somewhere in the range of 30 to 60 frames just right off the top, because it's very, very hardware intensive to produce that type of lighting and that type of reflection. And the RTX series cards, which just came out, those cards have hardware in them that allow for ray tracing. So they have specific hardware built to utilize ray tracing. I highly doubt that the AMD chipset that's going into the PlayStation 5 is going to have that kind of hardware in it. And the reason why is, first of all, AMD right now has nothing that can do ray tracing. If you go out and buy anything AMD as far as the video card goes, it cannot utilize ray tracing currently. Luckily, the PlayStation 5 is a year or so away, so this probably won't be the case when it comes out, but I highly doubt they're going to put any hardware in it that's going to do with ray tracing, because it's going to be far, far more expensive. If you look at an RTX 2080, it's about $700 currently. Think about that. Would you even pay $700 for a console? Probably not. Now, the RTX 2080 can't do 8K graphics with ray tracing. It just can't. And that alone is a $700 piece of hardware. You're not counting anything else. You're talking just the video card here. So that's why I think it's kind of unrealistic. Now, they also talked about 3D sound in the article, which means they're probably going to use ray tracing when it comes to the sound implementation as well. And that makes more sense to me. Audio really hasn't advanced too much in the past decade or so. So if they're trying to do something new with that, I commend them. Hopefully it's not too hardware intensive and it doesn't take away from the gameplay. That's all I ask. What I want them to do though is, instead of touting this whole 8K with ray tracing thing, just say we're going to get 4K gaming at 60 frames per second. If they can do that, I'll be more than happy. Because I remember when the last gen of consoles was announced and they wanted 1080p at 60 frames per second pretty much with everything, and most games now can't even hit that. A lot of games on the Xbox One S or the base Xbox One can't even run games at 1080p. They're usually at 900p or so. So just keep that in mind. Don't get too excited about it. The last thing I want to talk about as far as the hardware goes is the SSD. Yes, the PlayStation 5 will utilize SSD hard drives, which means you're going to get faster load times, faster boot up time on the system, and overall just a smoother experience. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to hook up mechanical hard drives on top of that for extra storage space. I don't know if it's built into the console or if it's something that you can like use external hard drives on. None of that was announced, but it does say that you will actually get a benefit from using an SSD, and it seems like the SSD hard drive is going to be in the machine when you get it, which is great. The downside to this is that high capacity SSDs are still pretty damn expensive. If you look at a 500 gig SSD or 480 gig SSD, you're looking at $70. If you were looking at a 500 gig mechanical hard drive, you could probably get one for about $20. So it is a huge price disparity. And on top of that, I can get a 4 terabyte mechanical hard drive for around $100 right now, where if you are looking for a 4 terabyte SSD, you better take out another loan on your house. But that's all I wanted to talk about today, but I want to know what you think. Do you think the PlayStation 5 is going to be this 8K ray tracing gaming god of a machine, or do you think they kind of overhyped it a little bit, even though it was just one article? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm excited for it, but I'm also excited for what the Xbox team is doing, and hopefully we hear from them pretty soon, considering this was a pretty huge announcement. But thanks for watching. Hopefully you liked this video, and if you did, you can click the like button down below. You can also subscribe if you want to see more of my content, and click the notification bell if you want to know when I go live, because I not only make videos like this, but I also stream on the daily. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Have a great day.